Right. Okay, watcher, welcome back. Right, now today is going to be a little bit more on the fire project. Not worth a windy intro. All we're going to do is get stuck in and put that little inner cowling, if you like, round the light inside that hole that we so carefully and so neatly cut in the last video. So there we are. Let's get stuck in. Enough waffle. Wish me luck. Right, show you what I mean. Alright, there it is. Nice and neatly cut hole, perfectly symmetrical as far as the shape's concerned. Loosely measuring around the outside of that, it's about 15 or so inches in circumference, and I don't want it to be straight, I don't want the hole to be parallel, I want it to flare out on the inside slightly like that, so that the light has room to move, because obviously the headlight has to have correct up and down aim, so if it's exactly snug fit, the headlight's going to be too fixed, it won't move. I've got to have it able to move. So in that sense, it's got to be flared around the inside, which is all the more difficult, but not difficult when you make a template. So big sheet of card, measure, cut, scissors, Blue Peter, and lots of sellotape. And once I've got it made in cardboard and it fits and it all looks right, then I can just cut that piece of cardboard back open, lay it down on some steel, cut the steel out and start bending and hoping I get that right. Right, I'll show you that. Now, just because a few of you have asked what this heating up business is and why not I bend it when it's hot. You can heat things up and bend them when they're hot, that's fine, but you have to be able to heat the whole thing up and you have to be able to handle it enough to bend it where you need it bent, and this is about manipulating and fine bending and tuning and finessing till it absolutely fits that hole perfectly, and then tack weld it in, tap it, heat it, and blah blah blah. So instead of trying to bend it hot, this is called annealing, or this is called annealing, and you bend it cold. That's what I mean. Annealing, if you haven't heard of it before, is a process of heating the metal up systematically all the way through the piece to between 800 and 850 degrees, which is cherry red. Cherry red is kind of that colour, somewhere between those two, you know, what you saw it glowing to. Once it reaches that temperature, let it cool down naturally. Absolutely naturally. In fact, the slower it cools down, the softer it becomes. So the whole annealing process affects the molecular structure of the steel. It softens it up by relaxing the molecules so that they all relax and they'll all bend around nice and easy. As soon as you start bending it around, they contract back up again and they go back to being hard. And as you work it, it hardens it. So that's known as work hardening. So if you've never heard of it before, annealing, you can look at it. Google it, you can read a bit more about it. Annealing is softening a piece of metal by heating it and just letting it cool naturally. If you heat it and quench it in cold water, that will do the opposite effect. That will make it hard. And there's a lot more to it. It's a massive subject, so I'm not going to bore on about it. But basically, that process took about half an hour. Heat that all the way through systematically, nice and slowly, and let it cool down. See, it's almost touchable that end where I started. In fact, yeah, you can pick it up that end. It's just mildly warm while that end is still burning hot. So that will cool down until the whole thing's stone cold while I go and make a cup of tea, and then I can start moving that around like it's made of lead, which is the desired effect. Let's come back in a minute. Right. It's just pushed in the hole at the minute. Let's give it a look. There you go. That is the basic infill. Obviously this will just be trimmed off and made good. It's got to be a little bit wider inside. The light needs just a little bit more room. But it's in there. And it's kind of working. Right, there we go. There's more, because this is further out here than it is here. That's thicker at the top, thinner at the bottom. So there's extra. And I've cut it just about right, so there's a little bit to trim. That can be just welded together and then all trimmed up. So now's a chance to get its last little manipulate and move it around, get it in the best position, get this joint as tight as possible, right into there. I may anneal that again before I do it, just to get that last little bit of perfect bending, so it's a complete proper curve. And I've got to flare that inner curve a little bit more. So I think I'll anneal it again, and then tack it in place. 1.5. That's the initial weld. It's kind of, see some light in there, there you go. It's tacked to death in there. Ugly, but it's never going to get seen, so it doesn't matter. And it's really strong because it penetrates both pieces of sheet metal like a little bridge. Each tack is done kind of like a little web across. You sort of weave across and make a tack, literally is what it is. It's really strong. I've done it loads of times before, and it holds that sheet metal together by forming like a little bridge. Can't weld it all the way along, just pop through it. But I am happy to say I haven't blown one single hole in this yet. Kept the voltage down, kept the speed, the wire speed down, and just dwell on it long enough till it goes bright orange, and then just come off it quick before it pops. It's a bit of dark art welding, isn't it? But MIG welding, I am much happier with MIG welding. It is much more forgiving. So what I'm going to do now is go around that, filling in these little tiny holes. Just tack, 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 little tiny touches of the MIG. Just touch, just fill them in, and then file them back, and that will be solid metal. What I don't want is to sort of, you could just put filler and Bondo, whatever you want to call it, all over that. But I think that's a bit shit really, and it's not the right way to do it. Make it 100% metal. If you're ever going to chrome anything, that's what you have to do anyway. You can't put filler on something if you're going to plate it. I'm not, obviously, this is getting painted, but if it can be all metal, then all good. There will be plenty of filler on it around here, but I want that solid. I want that done properly. So we're about 3/4 of the way. I just want to finish around there, and then it's all about finessing. Probably about 2 hours rubbing and sanding then to get it all perfect, all smooth, and I'll give you a test bit at the end. Let's get them little holes welded up. Clean up, and I'll show you what it looks like on a bike. Right, give you a proper look at it first before it goes on the bike. Okay, there we are, close up. Now that's what I set out to achieve. It's got less flange here and more at the top, because obviously the light sits flush and that's curved that way. So the back of this tube, if you like, is kind of that way on, not that way on. Anyway, there you go. And as you can see, it's flared out. Right, there you go. See it that way? Right, it's flared out that way. It's 6.5 inches across there and only 6 inches across the opening. So it's 1/2 inch wider at the back. See all the tacks on there, ugly. Let's see them now. Let's have a look. There's a light in there. There you go. Strong as you like. Ain't going anywhere. Proper beef. And all that business of just dotting the little holes. You find a little hole, stick the MIG wire actually in the hole, and you just pull a trigger. You don't weld it, you just fire it, and it just pops a tiny little bit of weld in there, and you file it back. And this has been 4 hours since I first cut that out, and I've had a total of 5.5 now. And that's the result. I'm kind of pleased with that. Kind of chuffed. There's a few little minor blemishes. Where is it? Just around this section there. It's a little tiny bit perforated, but there's nothing big enough there to stick a piece of MIG wire in and fire it. So it's just going to have to be what it is. The primer will fill it anyway because it's going to get painted. But I wanted it as much metal as possible, and I'm dead chuffed with that. There we are. Frenched hole. Stick it on the bike, see what it looks like. Nice. I like that. Let's show what it looks like. Yeah. There we go. Now I'm proper chuffed with that. Seriously pleased with that outcome. That's been quite a lot of work, but well worth it. So it's dead in the middle. The actual light has got about 6 mil all the way around because this flares in both directions. There's quite a lot of space around the light itself, so it moves around. Let me show you. Hang on. You can kind of see the light. Hang on, from the back. Okay, you can sort of see it there. Anyway, the light moves around probably about 6 mil up and down, so I'll get the beam exact. And I don't think that that little amount of cover there is going to affect the sideways spread of the beam. If it does, I'll just bring the light forward a little bit. It'd be a shame. So I'll sort of get away with as much as I can. I'll do a beam on the wall measurement when the bike's all finished and set it all up, because this whole thing wibbles about on slots, so it'll all be able to be set up exactly right. Absolutely chuffed with that. But obviously all this, where I welded a strip in there, that was necessary to get the flare on it, because obviously it was a parallel, straight tube. So to get the back flared out and the front smaller, just cut a pie slice out of it and then twist it, and that gave a flare at the back. Tapered at the front, and just welded that little piece in, and it'll just get body worked. The whole thing's being painted. It won't look, not painted in the way you think. The paintwork we've got planned is pretty amazing, but you'll see that nearer the time. That is one headlight, Frenched. So the next step on this is to blend these in, just so that it looks like the metal's coming out to that edge. A few of you have asked, why didn't I bend these inwards like that bit in there? Well, mainly I want this to look like a flared edge. So where these cables or these brake hoses and the cables there and there, where they go in, I'm just going to kind of mould that with some body moulding and bring that out. Just not quite filler, it's a different process, but you'll see that probably next time. So next time on this is filler, primer, and get it ready for paint. Then I can move on to the next thing, which is the cowling on the tank. Got a console on the tank next, but that's done. Really, really, really pleased with that. Proper outcome. Chuffed to bits. One headlight Frenched. Right, there we are. That's enough for one day. Welcome, Penny, for up.
Thank you.
She popped in, finished work early, so she can finish the video. Somebody can actually handle a camera. Okay, 78 hours in so far. I'm pretty cool with that. I thought it'd be about 120 to 140 for this build, so quite happy with it so far. Next thing is to do some moulding on that. I don't like the visual effect of the flares, where I flared it out to protect the cabling and to make those cable grooves a little bit bigger. That's only practical, it's not visual. I want those to be straight edged. So I'm going to be moulding those in with some filler so they don't show, and that's next time. But as far as the steel fabrications on that's concerned, it is done. And once the moulding's done, I'll bang it over in primer, and that's it. That's it for that front end, and it'll be ready for the paint guy. Once my buddy comes to do the paint, he'll do his own preparation on it, ready for the actual final artwork. But from then, for me, I'm turning on to the tank console. I'm going to put a little console on the top of the tank to house the mini speedo, that digital GPS speedo thing I've got, and a few other bits and pieces, some switches and stuff. So once all that's done, then it's on finally to the tailpiece. So actually I can see the light at the end of the tunnel now. It's not looking as distant as it once did. But there we are, that's enough for that. It's been a long enough video. I'll leave you with the Wall of Friends. Once again, the Wall of Friends is number plates. We ask any of you who are allowed to send number plates out to those of us who collect them from around the world. If it's within law in your country to send them elsewhere, then please do. We'd love to hear from you. It's one of those things, shows us where you're viewing from, and it means you've got something on the wall you can recognise that's yours, which is pretty cool. Kind of a two-way thing, isn't it?
It's cool.
Excellent. So I'm going to leave you with all friends. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a fantastic video. This is 6 hours in the garage. Really, really nice day. We go for a drink, shall we?
Yeah.
All right, take her out for a drink. Take it easy, ride safe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.